Good morning, everyone. My name is Adam, and I'm on a quest to be the most prolific reviewer of all time. To do that, I mainly review movies and television, and sometimes books, and more rarely video games. But I had this idea recently that it would be fun to play one game, like do a complete game of a franchise. So I started with the franchise that I am most familiar with which is the Civilization franchise, and then I did Europa Universalis. I mean, I haven't done all of the installments in each franchise, but with Civilization, I've done Civilization 3, that was the first one. Then I did Civilization 1, Civilization 2, and now I'm going to review Civilization 4. So I did a campaign on my stream, and it took about two streams to do. So the game, if you're playing like the standard playthrough, maybe takes about 4 hours to play, maybe about 6 hours if it goes a bit longer. And I'll tell you a little bit about the game before, but maybe just some background. It was published, it's a 4X game, and a 4X game stands for explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. And the Civilization franchise was the game that popularized this concept. Um, but it came out in 2005, and by 2008, it had sold 3 million copies, and it picked up multiple awards, Game of the Year awards, and a song called Baba Yebu or Baba Yetu was the first video game music to win a Grammy, which is quite interesting. And it's published by uh, 2K and developed by Firaxis Games, and it's still called Sid Meier's Civilization. And generally, the game, now I'll tell you about the gameplay itself. Um, the gameplay, you start as a settler, and you have like a settler unit, you might have another unit, and you found your city, and then you develop that city, and then you send out more settler units, and you found another city, and there you just basically expand, and then you have like a technology tree which allows you to develop your technologies, and the technologies in this game are very like era specific. So if you develop all of the technologies in one era, you go on to another era. So there's um, different victory conditions. One, if you conquer all of your opponents in the game, that's called conquest victory. There's also a domination victory where you have 80% of the population and 80% of the planet under your control, because obviously, if one country had 80% of the population or the planet, they would they would be in control of everything, basically. You can build the United Nations, and this is a really weird mechanic, but basically, you can declare a diplomatic victory. You can just win an election, and people can say that you've won. So that's really easy to do if you eliminate all of your rivals except for one, and you leave them with one city, and then you have more votes than they do because you have more population, which is what happened in my campaign. But I didn't get a diplomatic victory. I got a space race victory. So basically, you can build a spaceship to Alpha Centauri, and then you can send that ship, and then If you do that, then you've won the game as well. And you also have a time victory. So if you run out of time, and I don't know exactly where it ends. I think it ends in 2100 because they don't want it to extend too far into the future because it's really hard to predict what will happen in the future. And even in the technology, this is not from this specific installment in the franchise, but even in the technology tree, you have like, Future Tech 1, Future Tech 2, Future Tech 3, not actually any kind of technology. So, yeah, you win on points. Yeah, so what makes this game different from other installments in the franchise? So basically, it really builds on Civilization 3 because Civilization 3 had this idea of your borders were your cultural influence, and you could expand your cultural influence by, building culture, building buildings that would improve your culture, and then you would control more of the territory. So that is the same here, and your borders expand, and they're your color connected to your influence. And one maybe major mechanic that is different is the religion mechanic. So if you research specific technologies, you will get specific religions. Like I think if you research polytheism, you found Hinduism. If you research religion, you found Buddhism. If you research philosophy, you found Taoism, and like I don't remember exactly which ones, but so basically the religions in the game are Buddhism, Hinduism, Confucianism, Taoism, Christianity, and Islam and Judaism. And that's got a really nice song when and cities can convert to that specific religion. And the cities convert, you can send a missionary to convert the cities to that religion, or they can be converted naturally because two cities are connected through trade routes. So the flow of people will go that way. And I think it's actually a nice mechanic because so when I play, I don't want it to be, I don't control that, right? I don't control the religion. The religion just happens. So it makes sense that it's kind of something that happens naturally, right? But you can actually use it as a weapon of war. And I think in later versions of the franchise, they give you like currency for the religion, which is a bit weird. But so there's that aspect. That's the biggest mechanic that is different. But you can also build world wonders, and world wonders give you like some conditions that others don't have. Like if you build the Three Gorges Dam, you have electricity on your continent for all of your cities. Or if you build Hollywood, you get like 7 hit movies, which are like items that you can trade. And I really like that too. In Broadway, you get 7 hit musicals because, there's this like, culture is a product too, and it can be used to have influence as well. So I like that. Um, yeah. So then there's also a thing called, so there's world wonders where you can only build one. And those are things that are really famous, like the pyramids, I don't know, Hagia Sophia. And then there are national wonders that you can build, like every nation can build them. And those have like more limited effects in your civilization. So I think that's actually also a good mechanic because you you might want to have an effect, but you didn't build the actual global wonder, but you still can have the effect, which is nice. Okay, the other great thing about this game is that it's narrated by Leonard Nimoy. And Leonard Nimoy, if you don't know, he played the original Spock in the original Star Trek series and in the movies that followed. And so he's like this icon. And he had later in his life, unfortunately, he's dead now. He had work narrating, and so there's like quotes that happen when you discover some technology. And some of these quotes really make you think, and some of them, they're just trite cliches, but sometimes they really make you think, like, oh yeah, that's really, really smart. Like, one of them is, um, if you want to tell the truth, be sure you have one foot in the saddle. So basically, if you tell the truth, be sure that you can run away very quickly when you discover horseback riding. So it's full of things like that. And the cutscenes when you build any kind of like national wonder, or when you build like a global wonder, are also great, although they do honestly look a little bit old fashioned now, but not by much. Like, probably you could make a more cinematic cutscene, but it has the effect, right? It has the effect of what you're looking for. And the beginning cutscene is also kind of great. It's very Roman inspired, and like they really put a lot of thought in making this the best possible civilization game that they could. And there's other like great things, like, so there's this mechanic in the franchise generally, which is like these barbarians. So barbarians can just spawn randomly, they can spawn in villages or whatever, but this game introduces actual wild animals that you can be attacked by. Like, your explorers can be attacked by wild animals, you can kill the wild animals. So that's really fun. I think that there's bears, lions, and tigers, maybe, and they're like animated little animals. And the the animation of the units is also really good. Um, well, I'll come back to that in a moment because I want to say something else. But the there's even like the crabs are animated, which is great. The crabs are going like this in the water, and you can see like there's sheep and the swaying of the wind. It's really well thought out. And I think about the unit animation. So one of the funny things about the Civilization franchise is that you can have um, very modern units like helicopters attack very maybe more ancient technology like a phalanx or like a longbowman unit. So the animation is basically your helicopter shooting at these guys with bows and arrows, uh, and they die. So that's really fun, and I think that's kind of like a charming aspect of this franchise, which everybody loves. So it's really really great that that's still there. Yeah, so I don't know if you could tell, but actually I really liked this installment in the franchise. And I always thought, like, when it came out, I was really like, Civilization was the one game that I was very, like, maybe Spore also, but Civilization was the one game that I was really excited that it would come out, and I really wanted it to work, right? And I really wanted it to be like the next installment of the franchise. I was really curious what it was like. But then when I got 4, I was disappointed because I spent so much time with 3. But honestly, I don't know why I was disappointed, because playing 6, for example, and playing 4, like, 4 is so great. It's the perfect Civilization franchise. It does exactly what you want a Civilization franchise to do. It doesn't drown yourself in like over management, and you don't need like a doctorate to be able to understand how the game works, like in Europa Universalis. I'm looking at you, like, you don't, it's not complicated. You can figure out the basic idea of the game very well. And you can play the game and you can have fun. And this, like, the execution of the game is perfect. So the problems that I would have with how the game works are more like they're not they're not connected to this specific game. This is the perfect installment for Civilization. If you want to know what the idea of the Civilization franchise is, play this game. This is the perfect one. You don't need to look any other. So, like, I would give it 9 out of 10. Why not 10 out of 10? Because I think that there are still some things, like, there are things that I don't like about it. Like the fact that if you build a recycling center, all of your, all of your pollution from buildings is gone. That doesn't make any sense because obviously we have recycling centers now, and it doesn't mean that we have better environments than, I mean, we do. Do we? I don't know. But just building a recycling center doesn't mean that you have a better environment than you would have if you didn't build the recycling. I mean, you do, you know what I mean. It doesn't solve all of your problems. That's one thing. The other thing is that so basically I told you about the helicopters. So a helicopter weirdly is a cavalry unit. So in the game, you can't attack over, so units generally, they, if they attack over water, then they have like a deduction. But that shouldn't apply to helicopters because they're not on the ground, right? So it doesn't matter if they're flying over water, or like maybe if they're attacking over a mountain, it makes sense, but water, no, that doesn't make any sense. And then there are like situations where, so my helicopter attacks a unit with bows and arrows, and it attacks again and it's like damaged, so it like dies. So a guy with bow and arrows shot down at least two of my helicopter units, which is like crazy because first of all, the helicopters don't even have to get like close enough to your arrows to do any damage. They could be like way over here and shoot you. Like, and you can't get hit them with the helicopters. Like, I can understand like maybe if they had guns, like a random bullet could do some damage, but an arrow, that doesn't make any sense. So the game is full of like unique sort of artifacts like that that are a little bit ridiculous. So because you know you have this, again, you have this die mechanic of combat, which a lot of games have, and how that works basically, it's like in D&D. So you have like you have a unit that has stronger stats against a unit that has weaker stats, and then you roll, right? And then even if that, if the first unit has some combat damage, then the stats are less, and then the unit which is on the, you know, the other unit has more of a chance of winning, which makes sense in some circumstances. Like if I had, I don't know, if I had a gun and I was like a infantry unit with guns and I was attacking a unit with bows and arrows, and all of my guys like are limping and stuff and they're slowly walking towards the guys with the bows and arrows, yeah, they could win. That's possible. But not in a freaking helicopter. Guys with bows and arrows are not going to win with a helicopter. So I don't like that. And it just shows that even though there's remarkable attention to detail in this game, there are some things that they just didn't think about like that. It doesn't, you know. But then there are other things that they did think about, like, you know, helicopters can't occupy cities because there's two guys in a helicopter, usually, you know. So, yeah. So the other thing I have a problem with, so I have two main other problems, and these are more philosophical problems with these 4X games. So, one is combat. And I mentioned my big problems with the combat because it's basically there's no tactics connected to the combat. There's no, and I've mentioned this before in other reviews. In Europa Universalis, it's the same. There's no actual tactical stuff with the combat. They'll say, well, you have to make sure that your army is bigger, that it's like a mixture of like, different units, and then you attack not across the river, and you have a good general. Those are all like strategy things, in my opinion, or maybe like broader tactical things. But when you actually come to the battle, there's no tactics. It's just this plain numbers game, you know. And the computer might have a better advantage depending on what difficulty level you set it at. So I think I think like well, maybe I'll come to my conclusion in a moment, but I think that the so that's my first problem, that there's no you can't like take different units, and you can't like place them here and place them there and then like have them attack and see what happens. So that's my first problem. My other problem is basically the fact that there are winning conditions in a game about developing civilizations, right? And it focuses you to play the game in a certain way, but why not just develop the civilization and play until there's like an end date, right? And if you want to keep it so that you're not like inventing technologies that may never happen, yeah, the end date could be 2100, right? There's an end date, but you don't really have scores, right? So you can have the whatever goals you want to have. And I think that's one thing that the Europa Universalis does, and generally Paradox games do a lot better than the Civilization franchise, is there's no winning, right? You're just playing, you're enjoying yourself, and you have goals that you achieve or you don't achieve, or frustrated or whatever. And you can play like the Paradox games have these mission trees, so you can play in that way, and it makes it more realistic role playing. But with Civilization, it's more open. So maybe you can have like, okay, you build a wonder, and this gives you this, right? But I don't think that you need a victory condition. And I know that sounds weird, but like it doesn't make sense for me to have a victory condition. All right, so I promised a conclusion. And I think my conclusion is that I wish that there were an intermediary kind of game. Because I like games like this, but I think a game that was a little more challenging from the tactical side would be good. So I think like Civilization is here, Europa Universalis is here in terms of like difficulty and complexity. It would be good if there was like a middle ground where things are a little bit more complex, but you don't need a PhD to study it. And I played the Total War franchise a while ago, and somebody told me that it's kind of like that, but I don't know. So I'll go back to the Total War franchise and see what I think about that eventually. But yeah, so anyway, my conclusion about this particular installment of Civilization is that it is the best Civilization game. So if you've never played it and you like Civilization, you should definitely try it. And if you've never played Civilization and you want to give like it a shot, I would start with this one. It's like the perfect mixture of everything about Civilization. That's good and bad, but it is peak Civilization. All right, if you want to support me and what I do, please give subscribe on YouTube. I'm looking to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of March. Very ambitious because I have 536 subscribers, but I believe in us. I believe in our journey. So if you like what I do, please subscribe. And if you're watching on or listening on, tell me what you think about this game. I'm really curious what people think about Civilization 4. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.